Bundy's Garage, Bundy here. I'm with my good buddy Darren. He's the owner of Direct Truck and Diesel Repair in San Bernardino, California. He's owned this business. How long have we had this business?
22, 23 years. 22,
okay.
23.
Okay. So I just wanted to sit down with him, ask him a couple questions about the industry, what he looks for in technicians, his thoughts on, well, basically the Duramax, Cummins, Powerstroke shootout. Just get his thoughts on, tools and the tool trucks that he uses, and anything else that might come up during this impromptu interview. This video is going to be one long video. I'm going to split it up into different sections, and I'll label the sections, depending on what topic we're talking about. So you can either look in the description below on the different sections we're doing, or just watch this whole video. But I'll cut it up into different videos for what we're talking about. Obviously, you hire technicians.
Yeah.
You have guys working for you, working on your diesel trucks, your gas trucks.
Yep.
I have a video up on Bundy's Garage where we talk about UTI, Universal Technical Institute. Some guys like it, some guys hate it. It's either yes or no.
Right.
There's not a lot of gray area. When you're looking for somebody, do you look for experience over education? Do you look for education over experience? What are your thoughts on that?
It's right now in the industry, it's very difficult to find people that have either or. I've hired guys from UTI, and what I find is they know a lot about the book, they have very little experience, and some of them don't even know how to use the tools. They're just not proficient. So say that kid who maybe started working on a car when he was young with his friends or something like that, that's kind of the best guy because he's into it and he wants to do it, he's interested in it.
Yeah.
So that guy can turn into somebody, can turn into somebody, but you're not really sure. You just don't know. I mean, I've hired all those guys. I've hired UTI guys, I've hired other guys, and the bottom line is you just don't really know what you're gonna get, until you get it. But what I'm looking for is somebody who does have mechanical knowledge, but at the same time, you have to be into it. You have to have that curious mind. You have to want to know how something works. And if you find a guy like that, then he's the best guy for me. Not necessarily the guy with all the, hey, look, I graduated from UTI. For me, that has never worked out. Not one time, and I think I've done it 3 times. Every time, maybe it went 6 months because I tried to let the guy go, try to keep him going, and then in the end, I'm like, you can't work here. It couldn't work out for me.
So he comes off the street, comes in your office. Darren, I'm John. I went to UTI. I'd like a job. That kind of situation?
No,
or was it more like
we were desperate for people, so we're looking, and so you start looking, and there's these job hunters or whatever, those people that do whatever they do. And so we found UTI. So we asked them, hey, what are some of your best guys that are graduating that might be, people we're looking for? This is what we do. And so they sent us a couple of applicants, interviewed a couple of them, like no, a bunch of no's. And maybe this guy. He seems nice, he seems polite, he seems whatever. And so he in turn would come to us, and then we're like, okay, let's give this guy a shot. And like I said, 3 for 3 didn't work out. But I'm not saying that means all the guys at UTI, there could be some great ones coming out of there. It's just my experience with the 3 I had did not work out for me.
Yeah.
And so, I think that the guy that I'm looking for is like, I don't want to train him from the beginning because it takes forever, but some of my best guys got trained from the beginning. They were into cars or trucks, they were into mechanic things, they like to see how things worked, and so you have to have that aptitude. And if you don't, it doesn't matter all the training. And my guys could probably be better trained, but I think learning here, because we work on everything. We work on semi-trucks, we have a Honda, you saw when you came in, there's a Mercedes over there.
Yeah, Mercedes the next big.
Right, that's not our specialty. But
I'll put some pictures up of Darren's lot after this so you guys can see what he's working on.
So, just those multitude of vehicles. So the guy who likes working here is the guy who likes doing something different. One day you might be working on a rear end, next day maybe an engine, another day you're just doing light repair. You may be doing some welding, learning how to weld and all those things. I'm just looking for a guy that's like, hey, put me in, coach, I'm ready to go. I guess that's the guy I'm looking for.
Okay. Do you want a resume? Do you want to see?
I do like to see the resume, because really all the resume really shows me what I'm looking for on that is I'm looking to see how long have you kept a job in one place. Because you can't really call the other people and go, hey, is this guy a good guy? Because he really can't answer that question by law. You can ask him, would you rehire him? But pretty much the resume doesn't do much for me. I mean, I appreciate the fact that it kind of shows where he grew up or whatever. But I've looked at resumes before where it'll be like, worked here 6 months, then worked here 6 months. And so you ask the guy, so what happened? And it's never his fault. It's always somebody else. But if you see even a young kid and he's worked at the same place for 2 years and he's only like 23 years old, that's probably a pretty good guy.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I look at the resume, because I tell them all the time when I read the resume and I'm looking at it, I'm like, if you're lying on this, I'm going to figure it out pretty quick. I'm going to give you a job out there, and then you're not going to. So, within like a couple days, I'm going to figure it out. So, is this stuff true or not true? Okay. What do you really know how to do? Because you're going to get a job, and when we realize you don't know what you're doing, we're going to have a problem. So I want to see a resume, but I don't think it matters to me as much. I do want to see one. I want to have one. I want to hold one in my hand, and I do want to, talk over. But most of the time I read through it in a couple minutes, and I'm just trying to find out what kind of guy are you.
Okay. But would that be through like email or just a guy on the street like, hey, I saw you're looking for somebody?
No. If somebody sent me one via
Go ahead if you have to.
We should be okay. It's my wife.
She's gonna see this, dude.
She'll be mad later. I think I'm just like being older. I want to touch things. You know what I mean? Like if I buy a part, I have trouble buying it online. I want to see it. I want to touch it. I want to meet the guy.
So if he came in he went into your office, got through the girls.
Yes.
Hey, can I see Darren? I saw he has a job opening.
Right. It would take a little bit because they'd probably get screened by people before they get to me. I think my wife's a better judge of that, a better judge of character. I want to give everybody a chance. I'm just looking for some guys that go, hey, let's go to work. John, I think I'm gonna have to answer. This is my wife again.
What are we talking about? Oh, meeting. Gonna get screened by your wife.
Yeah, so get screened by my wife, and then she'll kind of find out, hey, has this guy had multiple jobs or whatever? And then I'll pretty much sit down and talk to him and find out, kind of what he knows. But I will tell you this. Like even when we ran a tow company, because we had a tow company for like 20 years, and now we pretty much sold off all the trucks, kept one or whatever. But what I found is it's impossible to tell who somebody is. You don't figure that out because they're on their best behavior for about 30, 60 days before you really see who they are. And so there have been guys that I've hired and I'm thinking, this guy's never gonna work out. They've been working for me 10 or 12 years. Then there's other guys I'm like, I love this guy. And then within 3 months, I'm like, I hate this guy. This guy sucks. Yeah, so I want to see somebody. I want to talk to somebody. But what I'm looking for, can you be kind and respectful and pleasant to me and my family? Because that's how you'll be treated. But if you can't do that, I can't teach that to you. If you don't understand respect and common courtesy, so I'm looking to work with people that know they can do that. Okay. I've had guys that are really, really skilled, but they're not very nice people. I can't work with them. Yeah. Now, I'd rather work around a shop full of guys that maybe aren't the best, but they're good people, that I like them, and I'll be happy, because I can teach them. Usually you can teach them how to be a mechanic, but you can't teach somebody how to be nice. Maybe you can. I haven't figured out how to do it.
There are a-holes out there.
Amen. Amen.
The box behind Darren is a Matco, and obviously he has all the major tool trucks coming here. Snap-on, Matco, Mac.
Yeah.
We've seen an SK truck out there in Moreno Valley.
Yeah.
I don't know if he comes by.
Right.
What are your thoughts on tool trucks?
I think that you'll never pay more. Like, in other words, they're super expensive. I think they have great warranty programs. They provide a great service, most of them. But, it's still the same thing. It's only as good as the guy who runs the truck. Like, if he has a lot of money and he can back a lot of tools, then he'll have a lot of supply.
From a technician standpoint?
From a technician standpoint. So say you're like, if I just want, an 80-tooth ratchet from Snap-on, probably any Snap-on truck's gonna have that. But if you want a 120-tooth ratchet, or you want a certain ratchet, or you want this, you want that, if he doesn't have the money, he won't have that tool like in a supply at his shop or on his truck. So you potentially can be waiting weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks for that. And I'm not sure the value, because you could probably buy it online if you knew what you wanted, and it would probably get there quicker. So I have trouble with the kind of service part of it, but then other times the fact that they're there, or like one of our Snap-on guys, he's great. We can be in a pinch, and I'll just call him and find out where he's at. I'll go meet him at somebody else's shop because he has a tool in his truck that I need. But
does it make you a better technician?
Nah, I think somebody, who could, like somebody who could play golf well, they could probably go buy a set of clubs from Costco and beat you, right? And you could have a guy with the best Titleist, thousands and thousands of dollars, but if you can't play, can't play. A guy who can play with any tool. So I don't think it matters, but it does matter when it comes to, like, say if I was gonna buy a socket set and I didn't want to spend a lot of money, maybe I'd buy it at Craftsman, because it's got a warranty, right? But I'm not buying their ratchet. I'm going to buy a good ratchet, like a snap-on one that's going to last a long time, one that switches every time. You don't have to go, is it off, is it on? Or it gets stuck in between off and on.
I hate that.
The good quality ratchets always, you know what I mean? You flip them, and they... Jimmy, can you catch that and talk to Rodney for me? Thank you. Sorry.
No worries.
But anyways, just those things, and certain things like, a screwdriver's a screwdriver. Yeah, the ones on the, on the snap-on, they have a better shape, they hold your hand better, but it's still just a screwdriver. If the tip breaks, it breaks. I like that warranty stuff though, like snap-on guy comes by, you got a couple screwdrivers broken, you give it to him, boom. He puts a new screwdriver in the handle and you're back in business. I like that.
Because guys, they carry the loan on that stuff, huh?
They do. That is,
Snap-on.
I didn't even think about that because it's been so long since I've been in that place. But yeah, I could remember early on. Gosh, we had such a great Snap-on guy, and I needed a welder. It's in the other bay, but it was a Snap-on welder. And say back then, it was like 20 some years ago. It was like $5,000, and I thought, oh my gosh, I can't afford this. And I didn't want to put it on credit because you can put it on Snap-on credit or all the other ones, but you're paying a pretty good percentage. That guy carried me on his truck. Do you know what I mean? Like I made a weekly payment to him, no interest, and he carried it on his truck. And that is the upside, that you can really get some good tools that have warranty and they'll carry you. You got to make that weekly payment, that minimum payment, but you still have that as an option versus if you go to Sears or wherever you're going to go to buy your tools, they're going to want some cash or a credit card or whatever you got to do.
What do you think about Harbor Freight?
I will tell you this, I think they're junk tools. We buy them, like when we buy something, we're thinking this is a one-time use, like we're gonna use it for this one thing that we need, and if it breaks, it breaks, and if we can keep using it, good for us. But there's a press that's sitting right behind you that we bought from Harbor Freight at least 15 years ago, a hydraulic press. It leaks a little bit, but it still works. We still use it. So, being me saying what I'm saying, that may not be right, because that Harbor Freight press, still working.
You put some ATS, what is it, ATS 25 or something like that? I'll put a link, but it's supposed to basically swells the seals inside there so it stops leaking.
I don't know, but it doesn't leak bad enough. We've never even had to put fluid in it. And when I say it leaks, it's just a little bit wet around it, but we've never had to add fluid to it or anything. It still works, and I even let somebody use it one time. We had no idea what they were doing. They almost broke the thing, putting too much pressure on it, and they didn't know what they were doing, and they bent the lower cross member, but we were able to weld it and straighten it back up. But we still have it, and when you think about what a Lincoln one or another one would cost, you're talking a couple $1,000s, and I think that one cost us back then like $200. So there are certain things at Harbor Freight, it's worth it. If you use those huge sockets and you only use them once in a while and you can't afford, $1,000 for a set of big sockets.
The big impact ones.
Well, not even that. Just like say like a 2.5 inch, 3 inch socket, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That you're going to use once in a while because the bolts in the truck, we're not going to run into that, but you do. You can buy those cheap ones at Harbor Freight. If you break a socket, you break a socket, but they hardly ever break because you don't use them all the time. You're not putting them on an impact. So stuff like that, I think Harbor Freight definitely has its place. There are definitely things you can buy over there that work. That press is 10 or 15 years old. It's still working.
I got a buddy who hates Harbor Freight. Hates it. He's like, I'm not buying anything from Harbor Freight. Well, dude, you're going to spend all your money on Snap-on tools. It's like, really?
Right. But some people are snobs. Like I got a really cool Snap-on jacket, right? Yeah. And it looks cool. I don't think a Harbor Freight jacket would look cool. Do you know what I mean? Like mine says Snap-on across the back. It's embroidered. It says like 1932 or whatever day Snap-on started. It's in the old script that they used to write it in. It doesn't have the wrench. It's a really cool jacket. You could give me the coolest Harbor Freight jacket, and it still wouldn't be that cool, right?
Harbor Freight from Japan, from China for the last 20 years.
Right. So, but I think they both have their place. But if I could afford it, pretty much all the tools in my toolbox are Snap-on tools.
Yeah.
It's better. But here's what I say all the time. It's like Harley Davidson, right? It's an okay motorcycle, but you'll never pay more. Right? Snap-on tools at the same time. It's a good tool, but you'll never pay more. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's just no way to pay more than that. So if you're, if that's your deal, then
That's it.
then
You're gonna pay that much money.
But it is cool if your box is Snap-on and all your stuff matches, and like this is the roll card I got.
Yeah, but I've seen guys where they'll buy a Harbor Freight box, go to eBay, buy the Snap-on sticker, like obviously the plastic one that sticks out a little bit, peel the Harbor Freight off and just slap that one on.
Well, I will tell you, like one of the guys, he went over to Harbor Freight and bought a little roll card or a little rollaway. He's been using it for 2 years, no problem. It depends on how you're going to take care of it. Like the Snap-on box are going to have those huge casters. Yeah, you can roll them across a parking lot, no problem. But if you have like even one of these carts, I know it's a name brand, but the casters are bad on it. If you roll it and hit some cracks in the concrete or roll it across the yard to go to another bay, the casters will bend. But if it's your box and you paid for it, you don't slam the drawers, why wouldn't they last for, you know what I mean? I just think you can be more hard on something on one of these and you might get a little bit better.
Is this your box?
That one's mine. So the wear and tear on it has been like with those casters right there. I mean, that thing weighs so much, but once you get it moving, it'll just roll across the parking lot.
Is this one yours?
That one's Jimmy's right there.
Is this?
And that's Jimmy's, and then like I got a Snap-on roll cart over there. So yeah, kind of like being, when you got to have that name brand. Snap-on for me is that name brand, like Best Tools, but I'm not saying they're the best. A lot of these guys buy Cornwell tools. He comes by and they're like, look, this is just as good as theirs. And I'm like, you look at it here, yeah, it is. But then I go, let me see the ratchet, or different things. I'm like, that's not as good. But it's just a feel thing. Like I said, like the Snap-on ratchet to me is still the best. And I don't buy the other tools when it comes to that, so I don't know. I just love the fact that when you're an idiot like me and you're like, is it on or off? I can look at the Snap-on ratchet, says on, off.
Is all your stuff Snap-on?
Almost all of it. Almost in my
So you're a Snap-on snob?
Kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of like the beer snob. You know what I mean? The guy's like, hey, a guy comes over to my house. He said, hey, you want a beer? I don't even drink anymore, but I have beer for my friends. And I said, you want a beer? And he's like, yeah, what do you got? I said, I don't know. I think there's Corona or Bud Light in there, or Coors Light or something. He goes, oh, no, I don't want, no, I'm good. I said, dude, you're such a snob. Like, you wanted a beer, but I don't have the right kind. So I guess maybe sometimes I can be a tool snob. You know what I mean? Like if I get a Craftsman ratchet, I want to throw it across you know what I mean? When you keep trying to switch it, it gets stuck in between or whatever.
Just chuck it.
I do. I want to throw it or break it or smash it so I can never use it again.
There's a video on Bundy's Garage, and I'll put a link in the description below about going to UTI. But a lot of the comments on there was about the future of mechanics and technicians. I think it's going the way of diesel or electric. What are your thoughts on electric and diesel in the future? Do you think that's the way it's going? Do you think that's the way these vehicles are going to be in 10, 15 years from now?
I don't know when the time frame is, but I'm a dinosaur. Like, I believe this. I believe all the people who control the oil right now, once the last drop comes out of the ground, they'll control the electric or whatever we use at that point. I think people want to go green. I get why. I understand it. But I believe there's so much money in oil that I think we're going to be running, combustion engines, whether they be diesel or gasoline, for a very long time. I mean, until there's nothing left. I mean, I'm not saying that there won't be more electric. There will be more electric. I mean, I'm sure of that. I mean, you see there's more and more hybrids, more and more of this and that. I just don't see it happening the way people think it's going to happen. I'm not, and I still, what I don't see, maybe they'll figure it out, I still don't see the battery technology. I don't see it. The battery still weighs so much, and I'd be hearing how, what's a cool car? The guy that makes the rockets. Tesla.
Or what's his name? Elon Musk.
Yeah. You don't hear about Tesla. Those are really cool cars, especially the Type S. Really cool car.
He said he's going to make a truck, 18-wheeler.
Right, and I'm sure he can do it. I mean, I've seen things like that. That's great, but when you got to move heavy weight, and see, I'm pretty ignorant when it comes to this because I haven't done a lot of research on electric, but I just can't see how the rich people in the world who own the oil are going to let that happen, unless we're going to run a bunch of other things on oil. And I know we use oil for everything, from making plastics to, all kinds of things. So maybe they will, but I just think if I'm one of those big oil companies, I'm like, man, these electric cars are really not a good thing for us. We really need, some diesel and some gasoline cars to still be out on the road. So I still think, I don't know if I'll see it in my day. I think someday it will be like that. I mean, when you look at the way you run a train, right? Take a diesel engine, you make electricity, and it drives some electric motors that pull a train. Obviously, there's enough power, right? because the train just works off electric motors.
Yeah.
You know, pretty amazing. They can pull a train, so there's plenty of power there. There's plenty, but at the same time, that same train takes a huge diesel engine to turn a generator to make that kind of power. So at what point will the battery technology catch up? And like I said, I could come across really ignorant right now because I don't know. I just see every electric car that I've seen, or even hybrid situations that we've kind of had to work on. We don't do a lot. You look at those batteries, you're like, gosh, that's a gang of weight that's in this car. Yeah. You know, and then the whole thing of, you know, will people buy off? And I mean, I don't drive more than 100 miles a day. So even if the car went 100, I mean, I charge it at home or whatever, it makes sense to me. But at the same time, when our generation dies, I mean, I know I'm a little bit older than you, but when our generation dies, I mean, I have a Dodge, Challenger Hellcat. I love the way that thing sounds. I love that when you hit it, you feel it. And I'm sure if you race that, I think they did a thing where they raced the Tesla and my car, and I think the Tesla could beat it, right? But it doesn't it's nothing. I don't want an electric car. But you know what I'm saying?
You hear that? No, you don't. Right. There's nothing to hear.
Right.
Here, I'm going to fix your mic real quick.
Hey, like my son's generation, on the other hand, I mean, he's all in. He's all in. His car that he wants to get is a Tesla, and he believes that we all should be on electric, and that there's...
But he hugs trees.
Yes, he does. He went to Berkeley. And he's smart. So the dumb guys like me that aren't educated, we love that petrol burning.
With that horsepower.
Right. You see that horsepower.
So you don't think they should specialize in anything? Or just...
Do you mean like training wise? Or
training wise.
Yeah, I think they should. I mean, I think I'll be the guy. I'm never on cutting edge. I'm always behind. Like, I don't see the future.
Like, there's good money in diesel work. Not a lot of people do it.
There is money in diesel work because it's complicated. A lot of it's complicated, and they make it more and more complicated as the smog laws change, especially in California. I don't know in other parts of the country, but as they change, I mean, we got a couple EGR coolers in the beginning. First we had one, then we had two, and that was kind of a nightmare. And then they put these, that we're going to put these DEF filters on there, and so, but then before we're just using a diesel injector and just overfueling, and so that was kind of complicated, but not. And now with all the other stuff that that we have with these dozer injectors and all this stuff, it's pretty complicated. Some people just don't want to mess with it. I think what will happen is one day, hopefully I'll be dead, but the industry will change, and it'll all of a sudden be that hybrid electric or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I'm gonna be sitting here going, we don't know how to work on that, right? So at some point,
we missed it.
Right,
dang it!
No, I'll miss it big time. Because people will call every once in a while and they'll say, because we do work on everything here. They'll call and go, hey, can you work on my Prius? And I'm like, no, we cannot. And we've had a couple hybrids in here that are cars. I'm like, we can take care of it. We can't work on the engine. We don't know how to work on the engine, the hybrid. We just don't have any experience in that. And you could say, well, that's ignorant or stupid on my behalf. But right now, there's a lot of diesel motors out there, and there's a lot of trucks to fix. And even at that, even if you couldn't work on the drivetrain, even if they make a truck, it's still going to have wheels, and it's still going to have brakes, and it's going to have bearings, and they're still going to have they're going to have to do something to drive the winches and. All the stuff
hydraulics.
That's not hydraulics on the back of the work end. So there's still going to be work. You're still going to need a welder to weld some of these broken trucks up, So there's still going to be work.
Well, let's lead that into right here. I have it as, in your opinion, which truck is best? You have the Ford Powerstroke versus the Chevy Duramaxes versus the Dodge Cummins.
Man, that's hard because I am a Ford guy, right? Always owned a Ford.
The power joke.
Yeah. I've always owned a Ford pickup, right? Ever since I was grown man. Like,
what are the common problems you see on the Ford?
There's a lot, but I see them on the others. Like it's like, I think you go like, hey, when I drove a tow truck for the company I own, right? Uh-huh. Say you had a Chevy pickup, and I have to tow you in because you're broke down. So I tow into your neighborhood. Your neighbors come out. And as soon as they know that you're okay and your truck's not wrecked, it just broke down. Say your neighbor across the street has a Dodge, or he could have a Ford. It doesn't matter. He'd be like, as he's leaving, walking back home, knowing you're okay, he's like, hey, John, if you had a Dodge, that wouldn't have happened. It doesn't matter what the make is. So everybody has an opinion. I think Ford makes a better truck. I do.
The chassis, I mean.
I think, yes.
The cabin chassis.
The truck itself. I can't
really? The 6.0?
I can't back up the diesels though. I really struggle. I want to, and the conversation we have in the shop all the time, is if we had one of these trucks, whatever it might be, and we serviced the way we serviced our trucks, we ran all international tow trucks. We'd drive trucks for 500,000 miles and sell them with the original transmission and engine in them. We just serviced them. We took really good care of them. So if we had a Ford 6.0 in our shop, say if we had a shop truck, brand new, and we serviced the way and took care of it the way we know to take care of it, would they be a pile of junk? I don't know. But everybody knows the problems with the 6.0s. I mean, they've had them forever. And then you kind of look at the 6.4s and you're like, wow, turbo, two
turbos, right?
Yeah, where you having turbos because of ceramic bearings and some other things, and you're having other issues like that. And so you're kind of like, wow, they only made that motor for a couple of years. And then you look at the 6.7 and, pretty complicated to work on. Maybe not complicated to work on, difficult to work on. The engine keeps getting pushed further back in the cab and the hood keeps getting shorter and shorter. Yeah. There's less and less room to work.
You got to pull the cab to work on it.
Right, pretty much. And they're kind of all like that. So say if I had a dream truck, right? It would be a Ford chassis with an Allison, a 6.7, or not an I'm sorry. It would have a 6.7 Cummins, right? With an Allison transmission. And now you got the perfect truck. Because they all...
So Ford GM and Chrysler are listening, that would be a perfect truck.
That would be a perfect truck. You know what I mean? I like everything about the Fords. I like the chassis. And I don't know, because we don't work anything that has those aluminum beds. I hear those aluminum beds are horrible.
Really?
Yeah.
What have you heard?
Well, they scratch and they get kind of dinged up for a work truck.
Okay.
Most of the stuff we work on, it's a cabin chassis. They put a flatbed on it. They put a toolbox on it. They put something. So we're going to have a lot of stuff like that. But, like even the Duramaxes, what kills me about a Duramax is that basically, an Isuzu engine, right? Mm-hmm. And so you call and you're like, okay, we're going to put cylinder heads on this thing or whatever. Or we're going to redo the cylinder heads, we're going to do some whatever. And so you call and you're like, I need head gaskets for this. And they're like, well, which head gasket do you have? I don't know, you have my VIN number, right? I'm calling a General Motors store. Oh, you need to count the holes on it. And it's the same thing if you're working on a Isuzu.
Yeah.
Like if you don't save the head gasket, you're screwed, because then you got to take all the measurements, try to put it back, but you got to go, oh no, I have 0 holes, no, I have 1 hole. That's kind of crazy, right? Like how can they not have that figured out? If it's a Ford, I don't care if it's a 6.0, 6.4, 6.7, if I tell them I need a head gasket for that VIN number for that engine,
they know.
It's the same head gasket, do you know what I mean? The 6.7, you have the same, so I kind of struggle with that. And like I said, with the 6.7, they had some trouble with the 6.7, the Cummins had some problems with the turbos coking over and some things like that. But those were kind of...
On the Cummins?
Yeah, on the Cummins, they did have some problems. I think they've taken care of it. They said it was a programming issue. I don't like the way Dodge took care of it. Like basically they would, they were told to drill a hole in the turbo and then put this
spray some spray in there.
Spray this cleaner in there.
Some hairspray in there.
Right, and so this old man said, hey, can you decoke my turbo? I said, yeah, we'll take it apart and glass bead and get all the coking out. Oh no, there's this chemical you can run through there. You don't know how to do that? And I'm like, no, and we won't do it because it won't work. So anyways, I told him, look, your truck's boosting at roughly 52%, okay? Because it can't open, the variable geometry part of the turbo just can't open all the way. So that's why you're down on power. Just let us take it apart and rebuild it. So you rebuild the turbo and now it's boosted at 97%. So he's happy. He's not happy that we had to take the turbo out and rebuild it because he wanted me to do it the way Dodge did it when it was still under warranty. So now it's not under warranty, and so he doesn't want to take it back. So anyways, he brings me this can of this Mopar stuff and he says, can you at least try it? I'm like, I don't need to try it. He's like, can you just try it? I go, yeah, we have a couple old turbos laying around here that are, shattered or whatever, that are coked over. Not to a Cummins, but just to something else. So he said, can you test it on there? Okay. So what we did is we broke the can open, right? And we got a small cup and we put a component from the turbo in there and we poured the stuff in there and just let it soak in it. And maybe you're supposed to get it hot, I don't know. Maybe the turbo getting it hot, it turns into some magic dust and, it takes it all off. It didn't touch it.
Really? Nothing?
It didn't even touch it. I mean, it didn't even touch it. Like you're thinking, well, maybe it'll make it pliable or gummy or something. We couldn't get anything off it. So then, because this man stayed on me for like a month, wanting me to get this. Okay, we did it. It didn't do anything. But
how long did you let it sit for?
2 or 3 days.
Okay.
Just sat on the bench. But maybe, I don't know, maybe the chemical, like I said, when it gets superheated, maybe it activates because
fairy dust.
Well, like how like parts cleaners, like now parts cleaners that are heated, that are like a lot of the water-based ones, if they're not hot, if the heater stops working on them, they don't clean. But you get them hot, if the heater works in it, now all of a sudden you turn it on and it'll clean parts. Maybe it works like that. Or
on a parts cleaner.
Yeah, maybe it works like that. But when you just take it out of the can and pour it on something, like at least if you spray brake cleaner on something, if you had a puddle of oil and you spray brake, you'll see the brake cleaner instantly eating it.
Yeah.
We didn't see any eating taking place. But like I said, once again, I could be ignorant and stupid. Or one of the two, right?
You should have just urinated on it.
Right.
I can urinate on your turbo, dude, and see what happens. Let it sit for 10 days. So a Ford chassis with an Allison transmission
And
with a Cummins engine.
Oh, that'd be a righteous truck right there.
Yeah.
Yep.
And we're here in California, in Southern California, we're 40 miles east of Los Angeles. And we're probably the leader in smog technology. And I've heard the DPF systems and all the smog related equipment that goes on these trucks is ridiculous. I mean, I talked to a guy that lives up in, where is he? Montana.
Right.
They just delete all that stuff.
Right.
Now, I'm not promoting you delete it, because if you're caught doing it, it's a big, huge fine.
On that subject, we get phone calls like that all the time to do those deletes, and we won't do them, because it's against the law. I mean, I'm sure your truck could run better. I mean, lots of people do it, but here we can't do it. I mean, if it gets tracked back to your shop,
oh, you're busted, dude.
You're done.
You're done.
And so it's not even
your
an
lights
option.
out.
Yeah, so we're just basically OEM shop. You know what I mean? OEM parts for OEM, replacements.
Best batteries.
I don't have an opinion.
Really?
I really don't, because like when we first started buying tow trucks years ago, I ran interstate batteries. These are the best. So when we need a battery to put those in there, I'm like, okay, those lasted that long. And then this other guy's like, hey, these are the best batteries. And so we ran those and whatever they were. And so at the local international dealership, they had batteries and they said like Fleet Pride on them or something. Well, Fleet Pride doesn't make a battery. Somebody made it. I don't know who made them. And we got them pretty inexpensive. I would get as much use out of one of those, because the tow trucks were pretty much the same. They're not running 24/7, but they're running a long period of time. Mm-hmm. And so, you didn't care about warranty, because you're just going to run them when they're out. I'm not going to chase the $3 residual, whatever it's called. They prorate the thing, and by the 5th year, you got a 5-year battery, and then it's like, we're going to give you 25 cents. You know what I mean? In the 5th year, it's like, no, that's not. I don't need that. So I found those were the best. So I've never seen. I've seen like clearly Optima batteries. Those are great. I remember one time my brother had a pickup, and that thing had a draw on it, and if it sat for 3 days, it'd kill the battery. And I just didn't simply want to look for the draw. I didn't want to spend time, I tried a couple things. I'm like, this is going to take a long time to find this draw. So I'm like, let's just put an Optima battery and see what it does. Until he got rid of the truck. That Optima battery took care of the problem. Like whatever the draw was, that battery was strong enough so he could park his truck for the weekend, or whatever, drive it home, park it for 2 or 3 days, and then drive it to work on Monday. And so he was fine. So I know Optima battery is awesome, but when it comes to like interstate, I hear great things, and other things, but we have batteries here on consignment, and we're told this.
Deka, from Deka?
Deka, and then I have other customers like.
What has your experience been with Deka?
See, like I think it's been okay with us, but then we have a big customer and has a bunch of trucks, and they take care of a lot of stuff. We do their overflow, so we do most of their engine work and stuff like that. And call them and say, hey, Richard, you need batteries. In this truck. I know you probably got some at your shop. You want me to just put them in while we're here? And he's like, yeah, but he goes, don't put Deka in my truck. All right, what happened? Those are, so I think batteries are kind of one of those things that everybody has an opinion, because I don't know who's making what. Like,
I think there's only like three manufacturers in the world that make them.
Right, and then when you make a battery, it's almost like, when you get it, when they say, okay, here's a Wix filter, here's a Caterpillar filter, and here's Ghetto Brand Z, right? Well, you can cut those filters apart and look at them and go, oh wow, look, there's more filtration.
Well, do you have an opinion on filters? Or is it the same?
I think that I do, and I think it depends on this. If it's a diesel, I want to put the best one in it. But say you have a passenger car, and you're one of those guys that's going to change your oil every 3,000 miles, right? You're just going to do it. Even though the factory says you could do Go 5, you're just like, I'm a 3,000 mile guy. I don't care what filter you put on it. Because in 3,000 miles, it's gone. Now, if you're one of those people who goes, I'm going to let my car go for a year, it's got 10,000 miles on it or 12,000 miles by the end of the year, and you're a 1 year, buy the best freaking filter you can find and put the best possible oil you can put in it. But if you're one of those people who's going to overservice, because I believe this, I believe you can put an inferior oil, an inferior filter, just change it more often, because changing the oil gets the dirt out. It just gets the dirt out. I mean, you can take a brand new, people will say, well, you just changed oil in my diesel, and it's 40 quarts of oil I paid and it's already black. Yeah, bro, that's how it works. Unless the engine's brand new. If you want us to change oil in about 3 times in a row, like change oil in it, run it for a half hour, then drain it, then put a new filter, and we do it, we'll get it to clean up, but it's not going to. So, the only thing that gets the dirt out of the engine, all of it, is by removing the oil. I'm sure there are people who are engineers that know more than me, and they're like, no, it's filtered at that right level, 2 bazillion microns or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So they know, oh no, that's an acceptable amount of dirt. But I'm thinking if it was acceptable, why wouldn't I pour new oil in it? It doesn't look like that, right? So I'm a proponent of...
Oh, just pour the new oil in and don't even mess with the filter.
Well, no, not just that. Like what I'm saying is if those sediments that are in that oil, the manufacturer's saying that if the filter filters out these particles out of it, then the engine will be okay and live, and maybe it will. But I'm just thinking that still looks dirty. So if I can get that out and pour fresh oil in it, and my proof has been like my son, educated, what we talked about before, Berkeley, smart guy, right? He said, well, Dad, my car says I only got to change oil in it every 5,000 miles. A little Honda, a little 4-cylinder Honda. I said, son, you can do whatever you want. It's your car. My facts have shown me that if you take care of something like this, I mean, I had an old Ford pickup, shop pickup, that had 340,000 miles, and it wasn't even a good motor. It was a 91 with a big block. When we sold it, it had the original engine, original transmission. All I can tell you is every 3,000 miles we changed the oil, and every 30,000 miles we serviced the transmission. Did we put the best filter in it? Probably not. Did we put the best oil in it? Probably not. But if you change it more often, it's just going to last, and it just depends. Are you one of those guys who wants it to last, like say they do a test and they figure this engine will last 250,000 miles, like in a little car. If you service it the way they tell you, it'll last that long. But if you want it to last longer, just service it more often, right? And it'll just last longer. But that has nothing to do with batteries, which is what you brought up.
It doesn't matter where you go. But hey, you say you service the transmission. Are you taking the pan off and dropping it?
Yeah.
And pulling the transmission filter?
I want to get the transmission filter out. I want to get a new filter in it.
But you still have all the stuff in the torque converter.
That is true. You have all the stuff in the torque converter. But really what I want to see is I want to see the pan. I want to see the magnet in the pan.
Is he living?
Yeah.
You out of here, Jimmy?
All right. Have a good night. Man. So he, you know what I mean? I want to see the pan. I want to see the magnet inside the pan. I want to see like if it looks like a donut. You know how a lot of times like it'll be round and flat. But if it looks like one of those donuts, with a bunch of fuzz around it, that metal does.
Yeah.
The transmission ready to come undone. I mean, it's working its way through. It's one of those things you can tell your customer, hey, we found stuff when we took it apart. I'm sure if you just use a transmission machine and filtered it out, maybe there's a way. I'm not really familiar with that, of how you could check that and go, okay, look, we're finding when we filtered this specific transmission, we found metal debris, and so hey, this is an issue. Right. So I had taken the pan out, and you could do the same thing. Take the pan out, put a filter in it, clean everything up, and then you could still, do a transfer. Hook a machine up to it and transfer. If you
to get the stuff out of the TC.
If you pulled, torque converter out, but clearly you're never going to get everything out because you're going to have it in the cooler and everything else. I mean, it's pretty hard to do that. I mean, I guess you could just flushing is probably the best way.
And sorry for interrupting, but what keeps you in business is most people don't open their hood.
Amen.
They don't open their hood.
Amen. They know where the gas goes and where the key goes.
I just start it up and drive.
Right. Amen. I mean, that happens all the time. And see, the hard part for me is I love machinery. I respect it. I care about it. I love the sound it makes when when you turn the key and it didn't run before, you rebuild an engine, you put it back together. I just love the fact that men who came before us figured out how to make this all work. It's amazing to me. But yeah, it's the fact that people will say, oh, this car's a piece of junk. Yeah, it's probably not the best car, the one you chose, but the fact you haven't taken care of it is the real reason why it's a piece of crap.
Yeah, but there are inherent flaws. There are inherent flaws within a manufacturer's specific motor or transmission.
Like the one car,
Ford Powerstroke 6.0. Come on, those would launch all the time.
I cannot defend that, but I still am a Ford guy.
Must have tools. For like a guy, I don't want to say UTI, but
okay.
A guy just starting off, right? I would think floor jack stands.
No, I think most shops will provide that. They'll provide jack stands, lifting, stuff like that. The big tools, they're like, No,
I mean like for the guy at home doing it by himself.
Oh yeah.
Dude on his back.
Oh, I got you. Yeah. I think you got to have a good floor jack, and I think that if you're only using it once in a while, you can buy the cheap jack. No problem.
From Harbor Freight?
Yeah. If you only use it once in a while, you know what I mean? If you're just like one of those guys once in a while, but if you're a guy that's in there every weekend, you'll go through it. I mean, we used to buy expensive floor jacks here. We typically don't anymore. We don't buy the Harbor Freight ones, but we don't buy the expensive ones because we used to buy like Lincoln jacks because Lincoln used to be good jacks. Well, Lincoln's not owned by Lincoln anymore, and they just don't last. So I got tired of paying, $800-900 for a jack, and then watch we throw it away in 2 years. So now I don't even know the company we get them from. There's some knockoff of something, but we get pretty good longevity out of them. So
Floor jack stands, basic wrench set,
wheel chocks, safety
chocks.
stuff, weight stuff. Good
3/8 ratchets, quarter-inch.
Good LED drop lights, because the other ones will burn you, like halogen ones, right? The old halogen ones, you remember that? You'd have like a halogen drop light, like that one, and you touch that screen, the protector that protects the lens from breaking, and then it burns that mark into your arm.
Well, I remember me and my dad would work on a car one time, and he had the old, remember the real type, right? And it had the incandescent with the metal frame around it, and you touch your skin. Anyways, we were in there, and I don't remember if it was him or me, but we had brake clean.
Yeah.
It hit that light, boom, pop. I mean, it was an explosion.
Right.
Yeah, it was scary.
Well, and then, it is pretty scary, but man, they make such great LED lights now. These little lights, and they're super bright. So I would say, like, good lighting, good jack stands, but jack stands you could buy Harbor Freight. We still will buy, we don't see them fail, but when they do, if we see a crack in them or something, we got welders here. Just grind it out, weld it, and put it back in service. So I think those are fine.
Have you ever seen a jack
not
catastrophically fail?
Never. What you start to see is the four legs, and there's a joint on them where they're welded together, and you'll see it start to split. But anybody who's paying attention is going to go, hey, look at that, it's starting to crack at the bottom. And if it does, then just grind it out, weld it. So,
can you weld an engine block, a cast iron engine block?
No, I can't.
Is it possible?
It is possible. I can't do it, but obviously.
Do you think it's possible to weld a block?
I do think it is definitely possible. I don't know if it's worth it, because if you do all that work and then the weld somehow goes wrong, then you're taking the whole engine out again. So for me, cylinder heads, maybe, because it doesn't take that much. But if the block comes undone and you're taking the whole block out of the truck, that's a lot of work.
6.0, 6.4, or 6.7, which one would you pick?
I'm a Ford guy.
I wouldn't do it. I would go with the Cummins engine.
I would go with the Cummins. I guess because...
Okay, if it was the last girl on earth,
right.
6.0, the 6.4, the 6.7.
I think I take the 6.0.
Really?
I think I take the 6.0. It's easier to work on. And because I'm a little bit older, I like the Huey style. And most people would probably say, oh, that's completely wrong. Because I really understand high pressure oil, like high pressure oil to drive injectors. And because we understand everything about them, if we had a truck that had one in it and something went wrong, we could fix it like that. Versus we haven't seen a lot of 6.7s, because a lot of them are still under warranty. They warrantied the crap out of those motors. We haven't seen a bunch of them. We did have a couple 6.4s in here. We had one 6.4 that came in here, and it had main bearing failures. Not rod bearings.
The 6.7.
And then there was another 6.4 that we had that came in here before that had...
well, sorry for interrupting again. I've heard that is because the injector for the regeneration process is dumping fuel into the oil pan and creating oil.
Right.
So it's oil and diesel fuel mixed together, which is wiping out the bearings.
Well, that is one of the issues, but no different than the older Duramaxes. You have an injector that would just start filling up the crankcase full of, It would come out the top of the injector, especially the injector had a crack above the seal, and it just fill up the head and drain down in there. And so kind of be the same kind of thing. I can't pick an engine. Like I said, I don't know what all the problems are going to, I guess, I'd buy the 6.0? Why I'd want the 6.0? I know everything that can go wrong with it. No, I know. I'm not, like when people say, oh, cylinder heads. We've only seen maybe 2 or 3 in here that had bad head gaskets, that had cracked heads. Only a couple. Because I'm just wondering, the ones those guys see, oh, you got to stud these, you got to do all this. You don't have to stud them. I just
bulletproof them.
Right, but I'm wondering, what are you running? Are you running a tuner on it? Or when that little light on the dash says check engine? You just kept driving it, right? But there's that comfort in knowing everything that's going to go wrong with something. And we've seen 2 6.4s in here with catastrophic engine damage and 1 6.7 with catastrophic engine damage. We have never had, the only 6.0 we had damage with, we bought the engine from Ford to put in somebody's truck. Mm-hmm. It was a company truck. They brought it back in about 4 months, and the number 5 connecting rod was pushed out the side of the block. I don't know what caused that. It was a rebuild from
Number
them.
5, what?
Connecting rod.
Was out of the block.
Was out the side of the block. There's a
Could
big
you
hole.
weld it? I want to picture Mike real quick. Was it a big old hole?
Yeah, it was just hanging out the side.
So you're not going to weld that.
No, you're not going to weld that. But anyways, that's what I'd pick because I still don't know what the problems are going to be with the 6, 7, and I don't like. If I could really choose, could I have a Ford 7.3?
Oh, even past that. Huh? Those trucks are fetching a lot of money right now.
They are.
If you can find the old body style, especially the crew cab ones, with the 7.3,
right,
it'll sell like that.
The first international tow truck that I ever bought, they didn't call it a 7.3. They called it a DT. What was it? I can't remember. But they gave it an international because International made the motor and they gave it to Ford or whatever. But anyway, so you have a truck that has 25,000 GVW, right? Mm-hmm. So empty, it weighs about 15,000 pounds. You put a car in the flatbed and one on the back, you're probably around that 25,000, right? So it has that motor with a Spicer 5-speed in it. We didn't know. We bought the truck brand new. We thought, that's what you're supposed to get, because I didn't know much about diesel. I'm like, well, clearly a V8's better than a straight 6. Well, when it comes to diesel, that's not true, right? It's just not, or they'd be putting big V8s in every over-the-road truck. But anyways, so we had this truck. It was a dog. Then we found out, they make different engines for these trucks. So we got ones with bigger engines, with DT466s, which was the big 6-cylinder, and those things pulled great. So I kept this truck for, 4 or 5 years. By the time we got rid of it, we didn't use it a lot. We maybe had 285,000 miles on it, maybe. And I sold it to a guy who was starting his towing company. So he buys it, then I see it at the international dealership one day, and I'm thinking, oh crap, the motor finally blew. So I go ask the service writer, hey, you know that truck out there for that tow company? I go, that's one of my old trucks. Putting a motor in it? He goes, no, it needs a steering gear. I went out and looked at the odometer, it had 386. He'd put another 100,000 miles on it, and it still had the same engine. So imagine that pretty much the same exact engine that was in a Ford 7.3 was pulling a truck that weighs 15,000 pounds empty, and then when you load it, and it was able to pull that, so by far superior.
7.3.
7.3, superior.
And the reason they got rid of that is because of all the smog regulations.
Right.
So Darren had the pleasure of going back to Jasper, Indiana to see Jasper Motors in action as far as their remanufacturing process and all that's involved with their engines, transmissions, diesel engines. So just picking his brain, what were your thoughts when you saw their operation out in Jasper, Indiana?
I thought it was amazing. I had no idea it was that big. I had no idea the variety of things that they worked on. It was just, I saw things I'd never seen before. I'd never really seen splatter welding. I'd never seen, them straightening crankshafts and splatter welding them and grinding them. Fixing and repairing cylinder heads and the transmission portion of it, and just the great attitude that everybody had there. They were really nice people, and there could be a guy working, and you're going through the tour, and you could stop and ask him a question. He'd just stop working and answer all these things. And I thought it was pretty amazing what they were doing. It seemed like a good place to work. The people seemed happy there, and it seemed pretty good.
What about their product?
Their product, I love their service. They have they have really good salespeople, and then when you call, outside salespeople have always been good. Anybody who ever stopped by our shop, always good. You call them on the phone. Mm-hmm. They're on it. It's not like I'll call you back. You're like, hey, what's the VIN number? You give them VIN number, and they're like, okay, here's the options that you have, and here's the motor, and here's the gasket set, and we'll email to you what we've done to improve this engine or improve this transmission. So you gotta love that, That's something you can show the customer. And the prices were fairly close to, I'm sure they keep track of that, but like say you had a Chevy motor, so you call your Chevy supplier and say, hey, what's my price and what's my warranty? And then you call Jasper, what's my price, what's my warranty? And they're about the same. Okay. It seems like Jasper can most of the time get stuff quicker. Like they tell you right then. They're back in Jasper, Indiana, and they're like, they would know where you're at because we're an account for that or whatever. They were one of our vendors. And they would say, oh yeah, we have one in such and such, can have it to you tomorrow. And you're like, I got to get an approval first. But they were on it. And then when you were done and you needed the core picked up, you called it, and whenever they told you they were going to show up, they pretty much would show up and pick up that core and done deal.
But you haven't bought a lot from them.
Haven't bought a lot from them. If we're going to talk about the downside of Jasper,
talk about the downside.
Is that when we would have it's a downside. Okay, here's the positive part of the downside, if there's such a thing. Engine comes back having an issue. So you opened up a warranty claim, and then they tell you, check this, this, and this, and get back to us. So you check said items, and they're like, okay, so that all proved out good. Check this, this, and this, and then they'll tell you, okay, we're gonna send you this part to put in there. And they'll actually pay for the labor. It's not what I wanna get paid, dollar-wise, and I wanna get paid for more hours, but at least they're willing to pay something, right? And their tech guys are helpful. Like, we had bought a transmission pretty recently, and it came back. We thought it was a problem with the transmission. It really looked that way. But we got to talk to one of the tech guys, and he goes, hey, here's your claim number, open it up. This is what, work off of this. And then I'll have you do this, this, and this. And so he said, you know what? I'm gonna send you a wire harness, internal wire harness, because we typically inspect those, but we don't replace them. That could be your problem with the codes you're having and the issues you're having. That harness could be bad. So boom, within a day, we have the harness. We install it, and it didn't fix it. So then we called him back. I said, that pretty much rules out the transmission. He's like, yeah, I think it's on the truck side. So went to the truck side. We did end up finding a problem. Automatically we put a transmission, and we suspect transmission has failed. But as we started looking through some things, we found some wiring problem up near the engine compartment that, maybe we did it, I don't know. Or maybe that's just something that happened, but it was probably a month after we installed it. So we called them, let them know, hey, there's nothing wrong with your transmission. And you would think they might want to go, hey, well, you owe us for a wire harness, right? But they didn't. They're like, hey, glad you found your problem out. So like super friendly, super helpful.
What do you think as far as Jasper versus dealership?
I think there's a little more defect in the Jasper product. But I can't compare apples to apples because I didn't, I'd have to buy the same engine from Ford and then the same one from Jasper. But,
because you've gotten a lot of stuff from Ford.
A lot, yeah.
A lot.
And I would say we've had that one where I told you that 6.0 that we put the engine in, like 6 months later, the number 5 connecting rod was punched through the side of the block.
Did they warranty that?
They did. And the good thing that Ford did, but it was difficult to get my money, is they said that they would work on it because it was parts and labor. So they said, tow it to us. So we towed it to them. So 2 weeks go by. Nobody's working on it. Customer calls me and he's angry. I mean, it's a big account for us. And I'm like, hey, is anybody working on that? And they're like, oh no, we haven't touched it. So I freak out, talk to the manager. I'm like, hey, what are we gonna do? I gotta get my guy back on the road. And so he says to me, hey, you know what? You do it and Ford will pay you. All right. So we go pick it up. They give us a motor. We put it in. The hard part was because in a cutaway van, there's no hourly whatever to figure out what the labor should be.
There's no book time.
So I'm like, how do I submit this? How do you want me to submit this? And so they're like, well, just submit it. My parts guy says, just submit it. They paid everything.
650 hours.
Right, that's what I wanted. That's what I wanted. They paid everything except the tow bill, which I was fine with that because if I did that for Jasper, say like if my shop rate, I want to be depending on what size truck, say if I'm anywhere from 105 to 125, depending on type of truck. Yeah. Jasper, I think, and you're talking about small pickups, but that I buy from them. But their price on the I think they usually pay me about $75 an hour for warranty work. Okay. But as far as being able to get to a guy, Jasper. I mean, as far as being able to get to talk to somebody and go, hey, here's the problem we're having. What are you thinking? You think it's an engine? Do you think it's this? What do you think we should check? I mean, we know what to check, but you deal with this every day. What are you having problems with? I mean, we had one problem with the Jasper engine one time that was crazy. We didn't install it, but somebody brought it in and somebody else has installed it. And it was a 5.4 gasoline engine. And you know how it has the tensioners for the timing chains. And they have what, I don't know what they call them. We call them a grenade pin. Yeah. So, you put the tensioners in, put all the chains, and then you got to pull the pin before you put the front cover on. Well, they didn't pull any of the pins. So
the pins were sitting in there?
Yeah, but it would still run. It would still run, but every once in a while the timing would be off.
Well, that's because he was about to go to lunch.
Right.
Or it was Friday night and he had to get his beers.
Right.
He left the pins in.
Right. But it was just one pin. So one side of the motor was running good, the timing was good, but the other side would kind of have some variable.
Just one.
Yeah, the variable geometry on that camshaft would be a little bit. But like I said, that was something somebody else did. They paid us for our diag time. They sent us a front cover gasket. They sent us the stuff. Did I get paid as many hours as I wanted to get paid? No, but it was still close as far as book time. Because I think book time's crazy. At me as being a private shop owner, I don't want to work for book time. I don't. The book time is So like what I don't like about book time, and I know this is off topic, but what I don't like about book time is that is for a guy who basically is working on something that's brand new. Like say Kingpins in an Isuzu, right? Some of these fleet, we have to go through like Donlin fleet and all these ARI fleet.
Yeah.
And we're like, hey, we want 9 hours to do the Kingpins. And they're like, no, it doesn't pay 9 hours. It pays 4. And I'm like, hey, have you ever done them? Because these are supposed to be mechanics that we're talking to on the other end. Well, yeah, I go, you haven't. Because you're gonna get a torch, and depending on what happens and how much you gotta heat it out, you may spend 3 hours getting one Kingpin out, depending on, you know. So I don't wanna work for book time. Yeah, if the truck was brand new and hadn't been in the snow or wherever it's been, and it's brand new and we got everything set out and everything's clean, yeah, you can probably do it in that amount of time. As long as that's saying that you did it the day before. So now you remember exactly how to do it. But do you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't wanna work for book time.
Yeah.
We're gonna charge more than book time.
Yeah, because it always takes more than book time.
It does. I don't care. I mean, I've heard, I ask dealerships and stuff, hey, you work on Nissans? Yeah, I work on Nissans every day. If you get a Ford in there, like a used car Ford, what do? They go, we'll look at shop time or warranty time and double it. So it says it's a 3-hour job, they'll charge 6. I don't go that crazy, but you know, that's great. I mean, if you like working for book time and you can make money at book time, go for it. But
last question, Diagnostic Tools.
Okay.
Best one out there. I've seen a lot of guys with I have Lamborghini stuck in my head. Aventador. It's a Snap-on.
Yeah.
What do they call it? Advantage? Advant?
It
sits in like a
It is. It's in that toolbox. We have one. We have one. I like it. It can do a lot of stuff. And it's amazing what it can do for all the different vehicles it can work on, but you're still going to have some issues. Like say, when you go to a Ford 6.7, it's going to read almost everything, but there's certain things it doesn't read, and there's just a couple. And there's certain things it'll regen, it'll do, regen the DPF system, but there's certain things it just doesn't do, where you need the Ford tool. Same thing if you're working on a Chevy, certain things you have to have a Tech 2 tool. You just can't get by without it. We make do with it. So I think if we're talking about it more, your customers are probably more light truck and car, right? Because once you get to big trucks, it's completely, I mean, you have laptops full of programs and
the IDS system?
IDS, that would be
the Ford.
Yeah, but they make, I forget what the one is for. We have all that stuff. It's just stacked up in there. I lose track of it. Plus, I don't remember acronyms, anyways. We just pay for it. What do we need?
Yeah, another $1,000. Right. Send it on over. I guess I need it.
Right, and that's the way it is. So I don't know if there's a catch-all tool. Like when it comes to diesel, I think I just spent $6,000 on one of the laptops. In other words, getting with the different programs with the Caterpillar software and the Cummins software and all this other stuff on there. And then like loading J-Pro on it and Bendix and Allison and so we have laptops that are ready to rock. But then I ran into this company and it's called, maybe we could talk about this another time, Diesel Laptops. This is a pretty amazing tool, but the problem with it is it's $6,000, to buy this tool, but it's ready to rock and roll. And I'm thinking about pulling the trigger on it because every time that I call him, I'm like, hey, we can't read this on this truck. Like with one of our tools, we just can't read it. Does yours read it? And if he doesn't know, he'll either say yes or no, or let me call you back. Then he'll talk to the engineer and he goes, yeah, we can read it. So to me,
what's it called again? Diesel Laptop?
Diesel Laptop.
Was it diesellaptops.com?
Yeah, but you could go, you're a research guy, you'll probably know more about it than I will by tomorrow. No, I mean, you're one of those people that would research it and you'd figure out more, because I haven't done enough research to find out, but everybody I've talked to says, no, it's a good tool. Here's what I think. The Snap-on platform is awesome, and if you can only afford one tool, and we could probably walk over there and find out what the name is, but I couldn't remember the name of it.
It's something, A something, Snap-on.
Yeah, but it's not a soulless.
I'll put a link in the description below what it is.
Right, and I think Jimmy, we can go look at it later, but I think Jimmy runs a soulless, which he has, and then we have, I don't know what the shop, but we have but between those two things, if you're gonna buy one tool and that's all, yeah, buy that one. Because I mean, even when you want to use the lab scope, you can be an idiot. I mean, it'll basically tell you like, here's the prongs of the cam sensor, and it'll show you like a picture of the plug. Put the yellow plug, the yellow connector here, and plug it into the scanner here. Put the blue, you know what I mean? And then it even shows you like what a good cam sensor should look like. Because back in the day, when you took up to a lab scope, you're like, what's the cam signal supposed to look like? Oh, it's supposed to be square on the edges, so mine's round, so that's bad. But I think if you're gonna do that, but nothing ever beats the software that was made for that vehicle. Like if you have a Ford tool, like if you're working on Ford trucks, Ford diesels, go buy the Ford tool.
Yeah.
It'll do everything, and you're not gonna have to wonder, the pinpoint test says check this pressure. and now you're like, it doesn't show it on mine. It says NA. You know,
Not available.
Yeah. So
see, because I've heard. I just watched this documentary. I'll put a link in the description below about John Deere is not allowing farmers to be able to, or not allowing anybody to see their programming and talk to their big tractors that they use out in the field all the time.
Right.
So there are dudes that are like basically hacking the software out of India or China somewhere to be able to read this stuff, and it's going into like congressional hearings in the state. And I can't remember the state, but it's like they don't want to give that the rights to be able to read the software up. Right. Have you ran into that anywhere else?
The only thing we have, Volvo is very proprietary. Like in other words, if you have the Snap-on scanner you're talking about, and I don't know about this particular version, but when we try to read the Volvo cars, you could almost read nothing. All you'd have is like a code reader. That's basically all you had. You really couldn't do anything with it because so much of it was proprietary to them, and they wouldn't release it. Like like say like on big trucks, you can get like a J Pro, which is a program, and you can read a lot of different trucks and read a lot of different things. But there's certain things you just won't because of things like what you're talking about, John Deere. It's proprietary to them, and that way they own the
They got you by the balls, dude, because the farmers have to take their tractors back to John Deere, and it's there's a wait time, and then I'm going to look at it. It's going to be $800. I don't even know what's wrong with it, but
you got to pay for it.
Yeah.
No, I mean it's the same thing. One of our customers who does striping and and stuff like that on the freeways, they you're going to have an engine in the front that drives a truck, and there may be some sort of engine in the back. It may be for grinding or for painting or for whatever they do, and it's a John Deere motor, and they're like, hey, I can't get that truck back to me, so I can make the repairs that I need to make on my end of the truck. And I'm like, why? And they're like, well, because it's over at the John Deere dealership. It's over. Probably shouldn't say their name, but it's over there, and whenever they get done, because nobody else can work on it. They can't read it. In other words, they have quite a few mechanics, and they have lots of software on their end at the the striping company, and they can't do it. They can't touch it, and we can't help them because we don't have anything like that. So I think that's wrong. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I get everybody wants to make their money, but that seems kind of scandalous. It does, to do that. I mean, if you're making a good product, you shouldn't care. But you remember the dealerships used to be like that too. Remember when Ford and Chevy, this is a long time ago, they didn't really want to sell parts to guys like me. Or if they did, they wanted to crank up the price. So it would drive everybody to the dealer. Then somebody got smart, and I don't know which, if it was Ford or Chevy or Dodge, and they're like, hey, you know what? There's a lot of guys out there, and they're starting to buy this stuff, this aftermarket stuff. Whatever the water pump is, whatever. Why don't we make it cost effective for them? Then they're buying our stuff. And what's crazy is even now, the OEM stuff, and I buy at a pretty good rate because we buy a lot, but the prices are coming down and down in OEM stuff to where you're not paying much more than you were for aftermarket. So if I can get a Ford water pump versus an aftermarket Chinese-made water pump, and we're only talking about $50, $60, I'm buying the Ford one or the Chevy one. Give me the OEM part. And I think they figured that out. And maybe one day, maybe John Deere doesn't sell enough, but one day you figure out, look, the more people that can work on them, the more people will want this tool or this machine because anybody can work on it. And then we can sell parts to you. Like, we're not going to sell parts to the customer, but John, you work on John Deere tractors. Wow, we could sell you, $100,000 worth of parts a year. And then if we make them easy to work on, but now when John Deere gets that stigma that nobody can work on them but John Deere, if somebody else comes out with a tractor that can do what that John Deere does, John Deere may not have, you know what I mean? Right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I know you got to get out of here, Darren, and I appreciate your time. I really do. And we're going to put this all together. Guys, Darren, check out his website, or just Google him, Direct Truck. And thanks for watching. And thanks for watching, guys.